Imagine walking into a meeting with a top-tier competitor and the first thing the hiring manager says is, "We were so bummed it didn't work out with you last summer, and we've been waiting for the right moment to bring you back into the conversation." In that one sentence, the entire power dynamic of the interview has shifted. You aren't a candidate begging for a job anymore. You are a high-value asset being pursued. Last week, we saw my client trapped in a golden handcuff cycle at her current firm. So she had the big raise, but her boss was title hoarding the VP role that she had clearly earned. She was told she couldn't see the forest for the trees, a classic form of phantom feedback used to keep high performers in tactical roles. But here's the reality. While her current boss was trying to dim her light, the competition was watching her spark. Interesting, right? This competitor didn't just want to hire her, they wanted to build a role around her. So they told her, once you get in, you can shape the role to be whatever you want. And if you're thinking, well, that's great, well, then let's take a pause here. This is where things can get complicated. Instead of feeling empowered, my client felt a wave of imposter syndrome. So she started to wonder, why do they see this in me when my own leadership doesn't? And am I actually qualified to lead an entire division, or am I just good at getting things done? In other words, mixed messages. Today, we're deconstructing the second half of my client's architect journey. We're talking about how to negotiate for a role that doesn't exist yet, how to avoid the vague offer trap that leads to downsizing, and why the very things making you nervous right now are actually proof that you're making the right move. If you've ever felt like you're ready for more, but the room you're in is still telling you to be patient, this video is your exit strategy. I'm Christina Holloway. For over 25 years, I've coached senior leaders at companies like Google, Meta, and Oracle to architect their authority and navigate the high-stakes politics of Fortune 500 businesses. I've spent my career helping people like you stop being the best-kept secret in their organization and start communicating with the presence that demands a seat at the table. On this channel, we don't just talk about career tips, we deconstruct the frameworks of social authority and intentional communication. If you're ready to stop waiting for permission to succeed and start building your own career on your own terms, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We are building a community of architects here, and I'm glad you're a part of it. All right, so let's get started. It turns out that my client was being offered a VP role that involved responsibilities on an international scale, something she had wanted and was working towards. This wasn't a minor step up, it was a global mandate. She would have peers in Hong Kong and London managing a territory that the firm was essentially building from the ground up for her. And yet, despite her massive wins and her recent high performer raise, she was terrified. She asked me, why do they see this in me when my own boss doesn't? Are they making a mistake? So this is what I call an imposter trap, and it is the shadow side of the golden handcuff experience. When you have spent years in a fixer role where you were rewarded for execution but sidelined from strategy, your brain begins to equate your value with your output, not your leadership. Her current boss had been gaslighting her for so long with that forest for the trees feedback that she had started to believe it. She felt that if she wasn't in the weeds fixing things, she wasn't working or succeeding. And it's easy to get here. Strategy isn't tangible the way execution is. When we get things done, we can see what we've accomplished. When we contribute in meetings with thoughts and ideas, it can be hard to understand where you're adding value. And if you're not leading people, which is directing, by the way, then we don't see progression either. But here's the architect perspective. Your current environment is not an objective reality, right? If you are working for a gatekeeper, they have a psychological incentive to keep you feeling unqualified. If you believe you aren't ready for the VP title, you won't demand it, and they can keep title hoarding for their own comfort. My client's confusion was actually a signal that she was outgrowing this limiting narrative. This new hiring manager told her, this is a tier 1 financial services company. Once you get in, you can shape the role to be whatever you want. And to a fixer, that sounds overwhelming because there are no instructions. To an architect, that sounds like freedom. So we talked about it. And I told her, you're worried that you aren't qualified because you're looking at your past tasks. This new company isn't looking at your tasks. They're looking at your social authority and your reputation in the industry. In fact, my client had been considered for a role at that same competitor the previous summer and turned it down because the fit wasn't right and the job was too small for her. That no from 6 months ago was actually the foundation of her current leverage. It showed that company that she knew her worth and couldn't be bought for a lowball offer, even though this was a major player in finance. She wasn't that desperate to get over there. If you're feeling imposter syndrome right now, as you look at new opportunities, I want you to consider this. Imposter syndrome is just the feeling of your future self growing faster than your current role allows. You aren't a fraud. You're just a little behind how others see you and your potential. Once my client pushed through the imposter syndrome, we had to face a very real structural threat. This company was building out an offer for her as a VP responsible for a region overseas. It was global, and she was going to have peers in other regions, but there was also someone that they were going to hire in a region that was very close to her. My client's concern was sharp. What if this other VP asks for all of this international area before I even start? What if I get tucked under their leadership instead of having my own seat at the table? Pay attention here. This is a critical moment for any executive negotiation. When a role is being built for you, it's often undefined. If you don't define it, someone else will define it for you. Usually a way that serves their own career, not yours. I have seen this go wrong. I had another client who accepted a senior role at a fintech startup. The offer was a bit vague, but a C-suite position. And the hiring manager told her, don't worry, we'll figure out the reporting lines once you're on board. And she wanted to be easy to work with, so she didn't push for a clear definition of her autonomy. They told her she was only going to be under the CIO for a short amount of time until they figured things out. And within 6 months, she realized she was staying under that CIO. She wouldn't have her own C-suite title or visibility to the rest of the leadership team. She lost her visibility, and ultimately she was downsized a few years later because she had been made redundant. She didn't have a role, she had a project. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to negotiate for title and authority. My current client was already asking important questions here. She needed to ensure her role was a division, not a department. We worked on what I call a structural ask. Instead of asking, who will I report to, which sounds like you're seeking a boss, you ask about the division of accountability. So here's the script my client used. I'm incredibly excited about the vision for the region in Europe to ensure we have clear lanes of accountability between the two regional territories. How will the P&L and regional decision-making authority be documented for this specific role? Okay, by asking this, my client signaled 3 things. She's a strategic peer. She isn't thinking like an employee. She's thinking like a business owner who wants to prevent overlap and friction. She values autonomy. She is setting the boundary early that she expects to lead her own region equal to the other VPs, regardless of how much more experience they may have. She is protecting the firm. She framed the question as a way to ensure the firm's success, which makes her harder to say no to. The hiring manager's response was exactly what we wanted. He said, when we find the right candidate, we change our timeline and structure to fit them. He confirmed that her role would be an independent VP seat, reporting to the division lead, not the other regional VP. If you are negotiating a role that doesn't have a clear job description yet, do not assume it will work itself out, no matter how hard or how much you want that job. Use the structural ask to anchor your authority before you even walk through the door. If they can't define your autonomy, they aren't ready to hire an architect. They're looking for a fixer. And as we know from part 1, the fixer path is a dead end. Now we get to the final hurdle, the timeline. My client was in a unique position. She had just received that massive golden handcuff raise. On paper, it looked like a reason to stay. In reality, it was her negotiation runway. Because she had that raise, she wasn't desperate. She didn't need a new paycheck. She wanted to make the right move. So this allowed her to be incredibly bold with her timeline. She told the hiring manager, I am committed to my current team through the annual bonus cycle in February. I won't be making a move until March. Okay, so most people are terrified to say this. They think if I don't sign now and start in 2 weeks, they'll find someone else. But remember what the skip level said. When you find the right candidate, you change your timeline. So to me, these were all big clues that they were going to work with her when she stated her terms. Now, by standing firm on her March start date, she proved 3 things to her future employers. She is loyal. She wouldn't leave her current team high and dry before a major milestone. That's the kind of leader they wanted at their own firm. She is high value. Only a top-tier candidate has the confidence to dictate a 30-day lead time. She is disciplined. She was willing to wait for her earning bonus, showing she understands the business of being an executive. But the negotiation didn't stop at that date. So we looked at the numbers. She was already at a high salary thanks to her recent raise, and we decided to angle for a 10% increase on top of that already inflated number, plus a housing allowance that would allow her to maintain a second dwelling in New York while keeping her current home. It's a lot to ask for, and she was going big. What do you think they said? That's not a problem. When you are an architect of your own career, you don't negotiate for what you think they'll give you. You negotiate for what you need to be successful. She needed the flexibility of 2 locations to perform at a VP level. She asked, and because she was the solution to their problem, they said yes. How did we know? They gave away so many clues at how badly they wanted her. So she went big. And don't worry if they say no. You're still in play until you tell them whether it's going to work or not. By the time the contract was drafted, my client had secured a global VP title, autonomous, not under another region, a March 1st start date, protecting her bonus, a total compensation package that reflected her global impact, not just her past tasks. She moved from a room where she was told she lacked presence to a room where they changed their entire corporate structure just to fit her in. And the difference wasn't her skills. She was the same smart, successful person in both scenarios. The difference was her communication strategy and her willingness to walk away from a cage to build a palace. So look, my client's story is a reminder that your current boss does not have the final say on your value. If you're being given phantom feedback, if you're being golden handcuffed, or if you're being told to be patient while someone else hoards your title, it is time to look at the other rooms. My client didn't just get a job, she architected her authority. If this 2-part series helped you see your own situation differently, type architect in the comments below. I want to know who is ready to make their move this year. Next month, we're going deeper into the one thing that almost stopped my client, imposter syndrome. We're going to talk about how to handle that voice in your head that tells you you aren't ready for the very promotion you've earned. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that kickoff in February. And as always, you can grab my communication toolkit at the link below to start drafting your own structural asks today. I'm Christina Holloway. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.